The story begins with a young boy named Jack, the son of a simple but hardworking farmer. Jack had an enormous love for stories, especially epic tales of heroic kings and mighty emperors. Among all of them, there was one particular story he couldn't get enough of, a legend he asked to hear again and again. The tale took place during a time when a powerful emperor ruled over the land. During his reign, a group of wise priests developed a magical kind of seed meant to reach the gates of heaven. When these seeds were planted in the earth, they sprouted into a massive tree, so tall that its top seemed to disappear into the clouds. People began to believe it was a direct pathway to the heavens. But as explorers climbed this towering tree, they discovered a strange world suspended between earth and the skies, a realm full of enormous, terrifying giants. When these giants realized that humans had found their way into their world, they saw a new opportunity to descend to earth. And they did, bringing destruction with them, slaughtering people and even devouring them. To protect the kingdom, the emperor's soldiers managed to slay one of the giants. The priests then took the giant's heart, enchanted it with ancient spells, and forged a crown from it, a crown of immense, divine power. When the emperor placed it on his head and faced the giants, they fell to their knees in fear, acknowledging him as their supreme ruler. At his command, they returned to their realm, and the emperor had the massive tree cut down, preserving the remaining seeds forever. When the emperor died, the crown and the seeds were buried with him in his royal tomb. This legend wasn't just close to Jack's heart. It was also cherished by the princess, who belonged to that same royal bloodline. Her mother used to tell her the story every night. 10 years later, Jack is now a young man. He heads to the city to sell his beloved horse. As he wanders through town, he stumbles upon a stage performance, and to his amazement, it's based on the very legend he loved growing up. He settles into the crowd to watch. At that moment, a young woman arrives in disguise. It's the princess, trying to avoid being recognized, but a group of rowdy men begin to harass her. Jack steps up to defend her, but one of them punches him. Jack warns them, and to his surprise, the men back off. He assumes it's his bravery that scared them, but when he turns around, he sees the princess's royal guards behind him. She quietly walks away with them. Enter Rodrik, the man the princess's father wants her to marry, but she can't stand him and flatly refuses. One day, while alone in his study, Rodrik discovers something odd. Digging deeper, he uncovers an ancient, enchanted crown hidden inside a pot. The very same crown forged from the heart of a giant. But he also realizes that something else tied to its power is missing. Furious, he orders the city to be locked down until the missing item is found. Meanwhile, Jack is still in the city trying to sell his horse when a mysterious priest approaches. "I'll buy your horse," the man says. Jack raises an eyebrow and replies, "You must be loaded." And that's rare for a priest. The priest chuckles, then pulls out a handful of strange seeds. "I'll trade you these," he says. "Take them to a holy man. He'll reward you handsomely." Jack eyes the seeds skeptically. "Who pays for seeds?" "These aren't ordinary seeds," the priest whispers. "They hold the power to reshape the universe. But be warned, never lose them. And above all, never let them come into contact with water." He takes Jack's horse and disappears, only to be caught shortly after. When Jack returns home, his uncle is livid. "You gave away our horse for some seeds? That man scammed you." In his rage, the uncle throws the seeds across the floor. Jack scrambles to retrieve them, but one seed slips through a crack in the wooden floor and vanishes into the dirt below, unnoticed. Outside, dark clouds roll in. Thunder rumbles and rain begins to fall. At the same time, the princess, distressed by the pressure to marry Rodrik, runs away from the palace. Caught in the downpour, she takes shelter in Jack's wooden cottage. Jack is stunned. It's the princess. As they begin talking, raindrops trickle through the floorboards and touch the buried seed, the one that was never supposed to get wet. The seed stirs, and suddenly a colossal beanstalk bursts through the ground, ripping the cottage apart and lifting the princess high into the sky. The next morning, the king himself arrives. He is shocked to see a tree reaching beyond the clouds. Jack tells him everything. The king declares, "Someone must climb this tree and bring my daughter home." Rodrik volunteers. "I'll go. I love her. She's meant to be my wife." The king agrees, and Jack joins the expedition up the beanstalk. But Rodrik has his own dark agenda. As they ascend, he cuts one of the ropes, sending several soldiers plummeting to their deaths. Eventually, they reach a mysterious world floating between heaven and earth. There, Rodrik confronts Jack. "I know you've got another magical seed. Hand it over." Jack refuses, but Rodrik threatens him with a knife. Reluctantly, Jack gives him a seed, secretly keeping another hidden. They split into teams to search for the princess. The world is full of danger. Jack's group is ambushed by a monstrous giant. 2 of his companions are killed. Jack follows the giant, convinced that it's holding the princess, and determined to save her no matter the cost. Elsewhere, Rodrik, angry with one of his men, throws him to the ground. Suddenly, a giant appears and crushes the man right before Rodrik's eyes. As the beast turns on Rodrik, he pulls out the ancient crown. Instantly, the giant recognizes the crown's power and kneels. Rodrik strides into a massive chamber filled with giants. In the corner, the princess and another companion are imprisoned. The giants all bow to him. Rodrik turns to their leader. "Swear your loyalty," he commands. The giant obeys, trembling. Rodrik responds by crushing the creature's skull beneath his boot and declares, "From this moment on, I am your emperor, and together we will descend to Earth and enslave humanity." The warrior set to be the next meal. Jack bursts in, just in time. As the giant lunges, Jack seizes a massive knife and drives it into the monster's chest, killing him. They escape and find a tree leading back down to Earth, their only chance. But a monstrous, armored giant sleeps nearby. Jack and the warrior find a beehive, gently open the giant's helmet, and release the bees. Agonized by the stings, the giant panics and falls to his death. Back on Earth, the king realizes what's happening. Worried, he commands, "Cut down the tree. If they reach Earth, we're doomed." The warrior turns to Jack and the princess. "You two go. I'll stay. I have to stop Rodrik. No matter what, if he gets down there, he'll destroy everything." Jack and the princess descend, leaving the brave fighter behind. The king watches as they come down, torn with emotion. He doesn't want to do it, but he gives the order to destroy the tree. Because if that dark power ever reaches Earth again, it could mean the end of all things. On the other side, Rodrik was preparing to descend to Earth with his fearsome army of monster soldiers. Unbeknownst to him, a warrior lay hidden at that very location, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But before the monsters could set foot on Earth with their cruel intentions, the brave warrior suddenly emerged and launched a swift, deadly attack on Rodrik. In the heat of that fierce battle, Rodrik was slain, and the divine crown fell from his head. At that very moment, the scene on Earth shifted. The soldiers had already chopped down the massive magical tree, and it now began to collapse. The warrior fell with it, and so did Jack and the princess, who were descending along with the tree. Miraculously, all 3 survived the fall unharmed. The fallen crown was then picked up by the new leader of the monsters. He slipped it onto his fingers like a ring, wearing it with pride as all the monsters acknowledged him as their new emperor. But they could no longer reach Earth. The magical tree, their path, had been destroyed. Just then, they discovered a small pouch containing the same mysterious seeds. Without hesitation, the monster emperor tossed the seeds into water. In the blink of an eye, massive trees sprang up, stretching toward Earth once again. And just like that, the monster army began its march toward Earth anew. Meanwhile, the king was joyfully reunited with his long-lost daughter. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he thanked Jack from the bottom of his heart. But he was unaware that a quiet love had begun to blossom between Jack and the princess. Being a humble and poor young man, Jack simply said goodbye and started the journey back to his home. As Jack was making his way back, he spotted the monsters approaching Earth once more. Instantly, he realized that it was the same magical seeds, stolen by Rodrik, that had caused this. Without wasting a second, he jumped on his horse and rode off to warn the king. Jack quickly reached the king and the princess and broke the news. The monsters had returned. Just then, chaos erupted as the monsters spread across the land, destroying everything in their path. In a desperate bid to survive, the king and his soldiers raced toward the castle, knowing it was their last hope for protection. These were the same monsters their ancestors had once battled, and now they had come back to exact revenge on the royal bloodline. Everyone managed to reach the castle in time, everyone except Jack. As the drawbridge was being raised, Jack made a daring leap and landed on it. But the monster emperor grabbed onto the bridge. Without hesitation, the warrior ordered the soldiers to unleash a volley of arrows. One perfectly aimed arrow struck the emperor, sending him plunging into the fiery waters below. The flames kept him from resurfacing, and now he'd have to find another way. Inside the castle, the gates were being shut, but the monsters began pulling them open using thick ropes. The king's soldiers strained to hold the gates closed. Outside, the monsters hurled burning trees at the castle. One colossal monster struck the wall with such force that it crumbled under the blow. Sensing the dire situation, the king instructed the princess to go to a hidden chamber where a fire torch was kept, one that could be lit to signal for help. Jack and the princess took off on this urgent mission. As they made their way toward the chamber, the ground suddenly trembled. The same monster who had fallen into the water burst through the earth and attacked. He captured them both and was about to devour Jack when Jack pulled out the last magical seed he had kept hidden. With quick thinking, he threw the seed into the monster's mouth. Almost instantly, the seed began to sprout inside the monster. A tree grew within him, ripping his body apart from the inside. In the severed hand of the creature lay the same crown, which tumbled to the ground and landed near Jack. Meanwhile, the monsters had stormed the castle and now stood before the king. The air was thick with the sound of impending doom. Suddenly, all the monsters dropped to their knees. Everyone turned, stunned. Standing before them was Jack, holding the crown in his hands. He placed it on his head and shouted with power, "Return to your world!" Obeying his command, the monsters began retreating. Later, all the magical trees were destroyed to prevent further danger. Jack and the princess were married, and in time they had 2 beautiful children. Jack would often tell them stories about the monsters, just like the ones he had once heard. One day, the children asked eagerly, "Dad, where's that crown now?" Jack smiled and replied, "The crown is still safe. It's beautifully preserved and displayed in an exhibition. People from all over come to see it, but the truth about it still remains a secret." And with that joyful, thrilling moment, the story comes to a close. Thank you.